in October of 2019, there was a pandemic simulation called Event 201, and I write about it in the last chapter of the book. And Event 201 was a group of people who simulated a coronavirus pandemic. Now, remember, this is in October of 2019 in New York City at the Pierre Hotel. And there are a lot of big shots there. And we now know, according to the National Security Agency, that COVID-19 began circulating on September 12th.
Damn.
So in Wuhan.
That's a rough month for us across the board historically.
Right.
Then.
Well, September 12th, what happened is the NSA, the satellite, and there was chatter all over the internet coming out of Wuhan of people talking about symptoms that were very much, and also cures from those symptoms. The hospital parking lot, the aerial photographs show that it was full. There were 3 people in the lab who ended up going to the hospital with COVID symptoms. The Chinese government that night at midnight went into the lab. They removed 22,000 samples of coronavirus that were public in the lab, and they've never been seen again. They also took all of the public-facing web pages, and they removed documents and papers about gain-of-function studies.
And we know this is a fact. This is a fact?
This is what the National Security Agency is saying, that they believe that September 12th was the day that it actually began circulating.
Okay.
A month later, you have in New York City Bill Gates hosting a coronavirus pandemic simulation. At that, his co-host is Avril Haines, the deputy director of the CIA. What is the CIA doing at a public health forum? They don't do public health. They do coup d'etat. But now Avril Haines is the top spy in America. Wow. She is the one who hid the torture tapes from Abu Ghraib, during that CIA scandal. So that she now is the head of the National Security Agency, the top spy in the country. She's also in charge of the coronavirus response. At the simulation, you have Avril Haines, you have people from all the social media companies, you have people from the pharmaceutical companies, mainly Johnson & Johnson, the biggest one. And you have another guy, peculiar guy, George Gao, who's the head of the Chinese CDC.
Oh, man, he sounds sneaky.
So George Gao must have known
Yeah.
that this was circulating at that point. By the way, any of your listeners who does not believe what I'm saying can go and look up Event 201. It's still on YouTube.
And this was before the pandemic.
It was after it started circulating, but none of us knew about it till
Okay,
January.
so this is after the NSA had said that this had occurred.
The NSA now says, looking back,
I see, this had
is
occurred.
when it occurs.
And
at that time, they didn't know.
So then there was a get-together.
The world did not know until around January 3rd.
So then there was a big get-together of some...
So then they're all together planning, here's how we're going to handle a coronavirus pandemic if it happens.
Was Fauci there or no?
Fauci was not there, but there were people from his agency there. So, and the interesting thing is, there was no discussion of public health. They weren't saying, how are we going to get repurposed medications? How are we going to link 11 million doctors, frontline physicians around the world on a communication grid so that we can quickly figure out what's working, what's working in Bangladesh, what's working in Argentina, what are the best protocols, what are the best repurposed medications that seem effective against
Right, like what's already working against this type of thing that we could ask people to get prepared and get on now to help themselves.
Well, no, but even when it starts, if a coronavirus pandemic starts, you want to be able to talk to all the doctors who are treating it around the world and find out, because there may be a guy in Argentina, which there was, Dr. Carvalho,
who's got good intel,
who was giving ivermectin to people. He gave it to 700 frontline healthcare workers, and he gave a placebo to 458. And of the 700 who got it, not one of them got COVID. Of the 400 who didn't got it, 53% got COVID. So he knew that very early on. But that wasn't being communicated. And if you were Fauci and really wanted to do a public health response, you'd be connecting all these doctors and mining what is the best intelligence, what's the best way to treat people, how do we avoid hospitalizations, how do we avoid deaths.
And you're saying they were just connecting more of the business side of it.
They weren't. The only thing they were doing was they were saying, how do we use a pandemic to clamp down totalitarian controls, to essentially execute a coup d'etat against democracy? How do we get rid of the Bill of Rights? Oh,
You think that they brought that up in this meeting?
Listen,
I'm not saying
nobody should believe me on anything. They should go and do the research themselves. And you go to Event 201, and here's what you'll see. The fourth simulation that day, they took breaks. There was a total of four. The fourth one is the longest one. That whole simulation is, how do you get the social media companies to censor dissent? And how specifically do you get them to not talk about the fact that this was a lab-generated virus? The George Gao says that, and this is what they're talking about for 2 hours. This is in October.
What was their fear? That if people thought it was a lab-generated virus?
Then they would start pointing fingers and blaming not only the Chinese, but blaming public health officials who were all funding, those studies in Wuhan.
Oh, I see.
Hope you enjoyed that video, and you can watch another. And you can watch this one, you can watch this one. Different options, different choices. Some guy just brings you one option, not this guy. 2 options. Watch one, this one or this one.